Potentia Wealth brings you the Power of Wealthness podcast.
Welcome to the Power of Wealthness podcast. Today, my co-host Todd Barney and I are thrilled to bring you a conversation that's at the heart of college athletics and the future of student athletes everywhere. Joining us is the athletic director from San José State University, Jeff Konya. And we're diving into some of the biggest shifts in college sports today. We'll be talking about NIL, which is name, image, and likeness, and what revenue sharing really means for student athletes. We'll look at the transfer portal, the evolving landscape for scholarships, and just how vital athletics is to university spirit and funding. If you've ever wondered where the money comes from and where it flows, or why sports matter beyond the field, stay tuned. This is going to be a fascinating look inside the game, behind the game. Welcome, Jeff.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Kevin. Hi, Todd.
Jeff, how are you?
Hanging in there. That sounds like a great show.
What does it mean to be athletic director? What is that job?
Well, again, thanks for having me here. And listening to all those topics, it really is an interesting time in college athletics. And when people ask, like, basically day to day, what's your role as an athletic director? And you can say the formal way, which is, you oversee all the operations, marketing, tickets, academics, all the business, the financials, the competitiveness, hiring the coaches, all that kind of stuff that one would suspect an athletic director does. But I'll tell you, most of the day, you're basically playing kind of like the ER director, where you're triage, you're reprioritizing issues all the time as they come through your desk. And so there's that every day's kind of different feel to being an athletic director on the one hand of the coin, and then you have here are the formal responsibilities that you traditionally think the job covers. So
in your role, you also work with other athletic directors, even in the bigger umbrella of managing the region, the Mountain West.
Yeah, sure. So, again, the national scene at the NCAAs, I've been on several NCAA committees. I'm currently on the women's basketball committee. So you serve in that capacity, the national organization to that degree. And then if you peel the lens down a little bit and go from 30,000 foot to 20,000 foot, you're right. You work at the conference, and we work with our conference officials a lot, and a lot of the practical logistics of conference play, scheduling, how you're going to run operations, tournament field size, all those kind of specific issues. You work with your fellow athletic directors, as well as the senior women's administrators, which is an NCAA tag. And Laura Alexander's our senior women's administrator, so they propose a lot of legislation that the ADs ultimately vote on at the conference level.
That's a huge job. How'd you get there? Because I get a lot of people asking me questions about, everybody wants to be the athlete, but so many people are now going into sports management and things like that. So how'd you get to such a prestigious role?
Oh, sure. So my personal journey, I'm not sure if it would be rhyme or reason to it in these days, right? Like, everything's a little more sophisticated, but back in my day, like, the internet was just starting, okay, as an example. So it was a different day and time. But, my journey started when I went to law school. And when I went to law school, I got involved as a graduate assistant with the Iowa Hawkeyes. And so that started me on this propelled me into this athletic environment. And so when I finished law school and I had a few years of experience in college athletics, it was like, do you want to go and apply your trade as an attorney, or, this college athletics seems to be a pretty good career path. And ultimately I chose the latter and decided to take my first opportunity at a university and, matriculate my way to several different jobs from there. And that's the one thing about college athletics I would say is it's not like going from State Farm to All-State across the street. So when you do leave for other opportunities, there's only 350 Division I institutions across the country, and you're probably going to have have U-Haul or Ryder or whoever you're going to use for moving on speed dial.
It's amazing. You talked about athletics and academics as being a part of the triage that you do. I was looking into it, and it's amazing some of the accolades that your athletes are getting in the academic world as well. You had 12 that were All-American athlete and honors from the academic standpoint. 8 of your women's water polo players were named and had academic awards as well. How do you guys balance that piece, the academics and the athletic piece? Because it's so time-consuming for the athlete.
Well, it's almost like that situation where you're making a diamond. It's kind of like where you're chiseling away from a position of strength, and that's because the broader university has such a great academic reputation. I think just recently we were named the fifth top public institution in the country at San José State. And so there's a lot of different people doing a lot of different great things academically. And so when you put student athletes that have ambition into that environment, and they're able to follow their academic choices and dreams and career paths and whatever makes sense to them, and then you provide the support that the university provides and the athletic department provides to support their journey academically, it's not a surprise that you can get great results. And whether you're talking about the individual results you were saying or team results, like I think our swimming team received a national recognition for their academic prowess last year. Those are not surprising results. And I think that's one thing that sets us apart from maybe some of our competitors is that, we have some of the most inspirational student athletes that I've been around, and their personal self journey and how they propelled themselves to this position in their lives is quite remarkable. And it's just great seeing them thrive in those academic spaces, because that's at the core of what we do. We want to make sure that our student athletes, we provide them the infrastructure, the resources to become the best versions of themselves in the classroom, in competition, and certainly in the community.
For those students, a lot of them are on scholarship. What does that scholarship mean to them? I mean, tell me some stories.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, there's so many stories of impact. And I will say this, that San Jose State is a little bit unique in terms of how our budget is structured. So we actually pay the university for our student athletes to get a formal education at San Jose State. So our external dollars, it's around maybe $9 or $10 million bill. So we're one of the largest consumers of a San Jose State education, first and foremost, since the athletic department. And some of the stories that are embedded of those receiving that aid are quite remarkable. I'll tell you a couple since you asked, Kevin. We had a recent football player who grew up homeless and was plying his trade at a junior college in California. And so us recruiting that individual, certainly had a significant impact on his life, having really no family structure around him, and credit to this individual for pulling himself up from the bootstraps and making one of those success stories that you hear about in the American dream. And so taking advantage of the scholarship opportunity that was provided to that individual, again, who was homeless, and then working through Beyond Sparta, making connections, and now is a local firefighter and giving back to the community. Would not have had that opportunity, or the community would not have received that impact of his employment decision had he not, but for that scholarship opportunity. And then, we had a recent women's soccer athlete who similarly did not have parental support early on. Grew up, I believe, with an aunt, another family member, and was an inspiration to that family. Took advantage of an opportunity in the sport of women's soccer, and was not immediately one of the stars, but just kind of worked at it, stick to it, grind, and all these kind of things. Would not give up. Eventually earned a full ride scholarship and took advantage of the Beyond Sparta program, and now is a contributing member at Adobe. So without the scholarship, or without that support, these two individuals would not probably have had the same kind of options in their lives, and certainly would not be giving back to this community in the same way.
You mentioned the Beyond Sparta program. My wife and I have participated in that program, and those aren't unique stories. There are a lot of students who wouldn't have a college education. They were supporting their families. They were working while they were going to school. They really struggled through that process, which made them stronger people, but without the scholarships they received. And then Beyond Sparta, tell me a little bit about that program and why that's unique in the nation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Beyond Sparta program is basically our life skills program that you may find at traditional Division I institutions. But I would say, again, not that this is a negative connotation, but on steroids, or a souped up version, maybe one with a turbo engine. And the reason I use that analogy is that to the good work of the people that have worked in that program, they've been able to make some connections with key contributors in the local community, including businesses. And so you have a real opportunity, if you come to San José State, to tap into those resources and get an internship to a Fortune 500 company, or a tech company, or a company in Silicon Valley. You have the ability to take part in workshops and get indirect education from the things that Beyond Sparta offers. They provide things like resume building, careers building, like all these kind of soft skills that, sometimes get lost in translation with their college folks that are leaving, that may or may not have some of those soft skills or personal skills to be able to interview well, or get that first opportunity. That's kind of baked into the Beyond Sparta program that you and Sandy have been so integral in. But it's also those connections, the education, the formal education, the workshops, the internships. It's just a lot of activity for preparing for life after. And I think that's a real credit to San José State, because I think most people in the industry right now are just looking for, what can you give to me?
Which is really important, because with the time that goes into athletes put into the sport and into school, I mean, they're both like full-time jobs. They don't have time to do all of those other soft skills that would transition into something else. Most of these young men and women aren't going on to pro sports. Most of them need to transition. Without that, they get done with school, they've got a degree, and then they end up going right back to the community and the situation they were in before, because they don't know how to take what they've learned from athletics and transition it into the real world.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, Kevin. There's been a lot of studies, through time recently that suggest that some of the corporations right now are really focusing on some of the things that athletes learn through applying their trade as being a student athlete in Division I, or in really in any NCAA division classification. And not that this is unique to intercollegiate athletics or student athletes, but, the drive, the determination, the work ethic, all that. Certainly they get that part, but so would somebody who's working to try and, cure cancer in a lab. Like there is that work ethic where you can get in different things. But I think the one thing that makes athletics a little bit different is the team goals, and learning to work with others for a common goal. And I think that's one of the reasons why student athletes have a unique skill set in this kind of work environment, that you can take what you learn on the field working with teammates, and then it is a very easy transition to working within small groups at a company, having a goal in mind, and understanding deadlines, and understanding what it takes to be able to prepare for an assignment like that.
That's super interesting. Along those lines, though, NIL coming in.
Yeah.
It's changing the dynamic of teamwork, or I assume it is. And that's what I've been reading some articles. I'd love to hear from your perspective, how that's now focusing, if we have this change from the team dynamic, but you're telling me companies are looking for that as a benefit of sports. So have you seen a negative impact from NIL and all the revenue share talk and whatnot coming in to change that relationship for teammates?
Not yet. It might be too new. The NIL or the revenue share world, I think we're going to talk about some of those specifics coming up, but in context of the business environment, or the student athletes going into the business environment, having experienced the NIL or the revenue share environment, I actually think that's a benefit, because ingrained in name, image, and likeness, again, are some of these indirect life lessons. It's probably the first time that these student athletes are going to understand that there's taxes being taken out of a paycheck, that they're going to have to file taxes, that, there's some financial literacy that needs to apply for some of the ones that may be taking part in the upper regions of revenue share or NIL. There's talk about investment, or, savings, or what a savings plan can look like, and all these kind of things. So I do think that there's still some good life lessons in education, even in an NIL or revenue share world. But certainly that adds some complexity to the athletic director, because now you have some sports that are revenue share sports, and you have some sports that are not going to be classified as revenue share sports. And the big determination is your sport generating revenue? And some of those critical markers are obviously the things that the fans see, which is like tickets and activity around games and concessions and parking and some of that game day revenue. But the lion's share of revenue is in the media rights. And so that's a conference distribution. And in that environment, the multimedia rights companies are specifically asking for certain sports because they know those are the ones that people are going to watch on television or on linear or digital television. And that's football and the two basketballs primarily. So those are the sports that we have to have a revenue share solution, but we love all of our sports, right? And I think every sport is unique and brings value to the institution, and certainly feeds into alumni networking connections and activities and all these kind of life lessons.
So does Beyond Sparta now do more on financial literacy because this is becoming a more important piece? I mean, I'd argue that it's been important our entire lives, and unfortunately, not against San Jose State, but education overall has just failed in financial literacy through all grade levels until it's almost too late. So are you bringing that in more now because of this pressing issue?
Yeah, we had a company come in and work with our revenue share athletes this year. And I sat in on that meeting, and I learned some things too, and I thought I was pretty good at my my financial stuff. But that's the point, is you can always learn, and I think that's the real benefit of San Jose State, is that it's an environment that is more of a helpful environment. I wouldn't say it's as cutthroat maybe as some of the other Division I properties. There's still a lot of recognition that we have a real opportunity to influence the maturation process of a lot of 18 to 22-year-olds, and I think that at our university we take that responsibility pretty seriously. So that if your son or daughter comes to San Jose State, we understand what that represents, and that we can support their efforts to better themselves in higher education by being a secondary support unit to those student athletes that choose to come to San Jose State. So I think it's a long-winded answer to suggest that, we are doing a lot more financial literacy programs, but a lot more programs in general, because we do care, and that is I think the DNA of the Beyond Sparta program.
There's a big difference between scholarships, NIL, revenue share. Those are the three revenue sources out there. Tell me a little bit about each of those, where they come from, and how they're impacting the athletics world.
Sure. So, like I said before, we have a scholarship tab that we pay to the university through the monies that we generate in all the different components. And so the vast majority of this is what we would call traditional scholarships, or what we grew up with thinking what an athletic scholarship was. And primarily that's tied to the ability to take classes at a university. So you get your tuition, your fees, your room, your board, your books, basically comprise the elements of a traditional scholarship.
Those traditional scholarships from donors who give money specifically for scholarships then?
Yes, absolutely. So we have a lot of donors that will give to the scholarship fund, and then we allocate those dollars based off of need or intent from the donor. If, for example, they had a particular sport or a particular major that they wanted to set up an endowment or a one-time funding for. But yeah, so there's those solutions in the traditional realm of scholarships for our donor base. And then you mentioned the other couple of things: name, image, and likeness, and institutional revenue share. And so institutional revenue share is money that the institution is giving to certain revenue share student athletes, again, in those sports that are generating actual
Revenues,
dollars,
yeah.
right? And in that vein, we basically are acquiring their institutional name, image, and likeness rights in that contract. So the current contract that we put into place this fall has elements of the traditional scholarship. And then if they are going to take part in institutional rev share, it will spell out exactly what those responsibilities will be.
And is that for just why they're students, or is that in perpetuity, or?
It's determined on the contract of that agreement.
Gotcha. Okay.
The NCAA permits you to do one-year renewables or multi-years. So it depends on what the offer is to the student athlete from the head coach in this case, or the department. And so, yeah, there are some options there.
Are agents involved in this too? I mean,
Oh,
you're having a major
Yeah.
jump now and a shift for, to your point, an 18 to 22-year-old person.
And you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars that are being paid to some of these athletes.
Exactly. So that's what I'm trying to get to. This is just wild. Okay.
Yeah, so student athletes now, when they in the transfer portal, I think you mentioned that at the outset. So that's becoming a huge consideration for departments and for sports, because as a sport like men's basketball had over 2,000 or close to 2,000 in the transfer portal last year. I mentioned there's only 350 Division I, so that's almost like 6 or 7 of your roster, half your roster is going in the portal every year. And so, like, if you look at our men's basketball team, we have 3 returners from last year's team, and everybody else is new.
So I have to ask and interject for our listeners that are parents of athletes or athletes themselves. What do you recommend as they're coming in to be prepped for this type of pressure? Because are they getting that in high school already to talk about it, and when they're being in the recruiting process, or how do they prepare in advance for it coming through?
Well, that's a loaded question, because I have my own personal belief structure on that, which I'll share with you. So I mentioned there are 2,000 men's basketball players in the portal, but only 40% of those did not get another offer.
40%.
Yeah, around 40% did not get another offer at another institution. So some of the students are getting bad advice, I think, from some of the folks that could potentially profit from a new financial structure.
Jeff, let's go back for just a minute. When
Sure.
you say that 40%, so I'm a basketball player. I put myself out on the portal. I don't get picked up. Do I stay on the team that I'm on?
No.
No. And if I don't get picked up, then my education's done. My scholarship's done.
Correct.
Wow.
Or you can go to junior college or be a general student or Division II opportunity, but there are a lot of individuals that are going into the portal that are not getting that next opportunity, and that's unfortunate, because they may be getting bad advice, or you bet on yourself, right? And if you bet wrong, unfortunately, those are the issues that come with this territory. And you hope that those are mitigated, right? Because you want to have as many students have opportunities, but unfortunately, that's just not the case, because again, there's high school kids and junior college kids that are going to be wanting those participation opportunities as well. So it's super competitive.
Wow, so you took an already competitive situation and made it even more competitive.
And
so
put
those slim
gasoline
chances of making it have just shrunk even more.
Yeah, we basically ignited gasoline on top of a current situation.
Well, and we're asking 18, 19, 20-year-olds to make these decisions
without full faith of information or and taking advice in terms of a structure that they may or may not have full knowledge about. And that's unfortunate.
The other challenge to that is, I mean, we all know this, when you're 18, 20,000 or 50,000 or 100,000 or more, because you get these marquee players, sounds like life-changing money that's never going to go away. And unfortunately, life just costs so much more. So, Kevin, from a financial planning standpoint, how do you deal with people of all different ages when they get a windfall, or they view it as a windfall, and you have to educate them that it's not, or be more logical?
I think and that's a great question. I'll let you answer that, Kevin. But what I will interject here is
Jeff's got your back. Your PR man's here.
What I'll interject too, just as a consideration, is you have these athletes that are making these calls on their finances in real time, and one thing that they are dismissing, at least a lot of the individuals I talk to that are dismissing, is the value and equity in that degree. You got kids that are transferring out of Stanford, that are on NIL, and they're looking to make even more dollars. But in retrospect, if you're leaving a San José State that has powering Silicon Valley with the most number of graduates in those Fortune 500 companies, and we have the Beyond Sparta program, and you are leaving our environment to go make an extra $10,000, $20,000, is that really the right call for the rest of your life? And I just don't know if student athletes in their current structure with their family or their agents or their candid conversations with their coaches or siblings or wherever they're getting their advice are taking a lot of those factors into consideration, or is it really just transactional about what dollars can you give me right now? And I will say that in the current environment, the marketplace is overcorrected into a transactional environment where it really is about the dollars and cents, and it's less so about the reputation and the degree at the institution that you could get.
Well, not only that, but the coach that you're working with, the team that you're working with, the opportunities in the future when you're taking, $10,000, $20,000 to make your decision about which team you play with. And then that's only a guarantee for 1 year in most cases. So then when that's done, then you took your $10,000, you played 1 year, then you go out on the portal and have a 40% chance of not being picked up. It's tough out there for the athletes. And even for those that make it to the pros. I did a little research, and the average length of life of a player going into the NFL or the NBA or some of these is short. So that windfall that you have, Todd, is like it's 1 year, it's 2 years, maybe it's 3 years. So it really takes some. You talk about financial literacy. It takes some thought, because if you go out and you buy a house and you buy a car, and then the money's gone, and then you don't have an income, what do you do? So it's a really difficult situation. And again, we're asking 18, 19, 20-year-olds to make these decisions that traditionally they haven't had to make.
Oh, it's crazy. What it's reminding me of is you hear all those stories of famous professional athletes that that were superstars, that were the wealthiest of the wealthy, and they're bankrupt 2-3 years later. And now we're taking that down to a younger generation that could absolutely completely derail their future and not even got the chance to get started. So that's what's so fascinating.
And more ill-equipped to deal with the realities of the finances.
Totally.
One would think, because they're younger in their process.
Yeah.
That is unfortunate. But there's a sociological, study here too. Like somewhere down the line, what is the impact of what we've allowed to have happen? Because I remember my college years, and I still have I still have friends that I went to college with. And I went 4 years. You went how many years? 4? 5?
4, 5. Yeah.
5.
Well,
I should be a doctor.
You have student athletes that are transferring every year. So like, are they getting the social development? Do they know how to make friends? Do they have a network that they've developed? If you're going to a different environment every year chasing the money, and what is that sending in terms of setting them up for how their orientation for the rest of their lives, right? And so that's what not that I worry about it, but I don't think that some of these impacts are going to be studied until down the line, and I'm concerned that some of the things that we took for granted, college, the experience, the friends, the development, the social, the community aspect, all these kind of things are going to get lost in an environment where you're not putting feet on the ground or getting rooted to a particular environment.
It sounds like you guys are doing a great job at San José State, Beyond Sparta, all of these. Are you seeing it at the conference level or the national level to also get in front of it? I have to assume that every university is going through this same piece. You highlighted Stanford's losing kids to go to chase down short-term gain as well. So what other top-down support are there for the families and the athletes to get good advice before they start getting approached by this?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things on the web. There's the NCAA,
I believe everything on the web, by the
way. There's a lot too in terms of the process, in terms of even getting eligible for consideration for Division I or Division II, and so there are resources that you can tap into. I think the one thing is, there is a little bit of liar's poker in the environment. What one person may think your value is in the marketplace may not necessarily be the value in the marketplace. So in a lot of ways, you're putting up a price on eBay and seeing if anybody's going to bid on it,
or chasing returns.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, might have done that before.
But that's the unfortunate situation, because you don't have, none of us do in terms of what the future is going to lay out. But you're making life-changing decisions without all the information, and and there's no getting around that. And so hopefully your network, and what I would suggest to the families that are listening to this, and if you have an aspiring student that wants to take part in college athletics, is to block out the noise as much as you can, and really provide and hone in on the institutions and what they're able to provide to the athlete. And then it's up to you to evaluate the risk and the environment. If you want to move, you want to be part of the 40% or the 60% in terms of getting that next opportunity. If you can get more dollars, or when you make your initial selection, are you like, I really, this is where I want to be, and this is where I want to apply my trade. And unless I get, life-changing, stupid 7-figure dollars, this is where I want to make home for the next 4 or 5 years. And I think we'll get there. I just think that there's still a new car smell with all these processes and revenue share and liar's poker. And so until we get more of a solid structure with more data points that we can point to, it's still going to be a pretty fluid situation.
So let's go beyond the field, and let's talk about the impact that athletics has at the university level, because there's always this, the campus is always saying, what do we need a football team for? And what value does athletics bring to a campus?
Yeah, so we actually did a recent study on this, Kevin, as you may know, at San José State, and we basically asked, if you aggregate all of our social media accounts, all of our creative, all of our advertising, our broadcasting, our sports that are in the digital and the linear space, and we aggregate all that, what is the impact of all of that activity? And at San Jose State, it's, the study suggests it's about $225 million and change per year.
Per year.
It's things like, when you consider that fact, because there's a lot more opportunities now than back in the day with social media and digital and linear consumption of content. But when you marry that with, the brand of San Jose State, and the Flutie effect. And, some people may say, wait, what's the Flutie effect? I remember Doug Flutie, if you're my age. Well, if you remember that game way back in the 80s when he threw the Hail Mary against the University of Miami around Thanksgiving that one year, that single play, that single result impacted Boston College, which was studied, that their applications went up immediately in the aftermath of the next cycle, and that caused their selectivity to change, which impacted their academic rating. And so there was this real sophisticated study that came from that. And it's a study that's been replicated throughout, the last several years. When Butler had the run to the Final Four those couple of times, maybe 15 years ago, they also saw that significant increase in terms of their attention. And right now, if you look at it into CSU, it's the same thing is kind of playing out. So the FBS institutions that are on TV that have invested in sports, revenue share sports like football, that are playing at the top of the pyramid, ourselves, San Diego State, Fresno State, and the Mountain West, as an example, we all are up predominantly in terms of enrollment at the student, and certainly the programs. And there's a whole bunch, and I'm not suggesting that athletics is the only lever here, but certainly it is a key lever in terms of the PR opportunities and getting the word out for a particular university. You marry that with compelling athletic content, maybe some results, and all of a sudden you can see that marketing extension. That's one of the reasons why they call athletics the front porch of a university. It's one of the main things that introduces individuals to look behind or learn more about an institution. Maybe it's a game day, maybe it's taking a game, maybe it's a camping clinic on the campus, or whatever it is. But there's an introduction from the front porch or athletics in a lot of cases.
And you get some free Flutie Flakes.
I remember the Flutie Flakes.
Absolutely.
In that time
we all had to eat them.
I was living close to Buffalo, so that he was huge when he was playing for the Bills back in the day.
How has that changed with NIL and all this different revenue source? If you're talking about legacy and sports being such a big driver for donors and scholarships, has this influx of revenue impacted donors? Are they more hesitant? Are they donating elsewhere? Or are you seeing more income coming in and being able to foster with that academic success and stuff?
I'll tell you, one of the beauties at San Jose State is that we have an advancement team that caters to donor intent. And so, we're not involved in terms of, trying to sell X and, then you get Y or something different. We match donor intent to the realities of what we can potentially offer to our donor base. And so from this perspective, we're quite comfortable working in this space. And actually, our donors are more inclined to give to the university and trust our systems more than they would to a third-party NIL. Also, you get the tax benefits and some of those collateral benefits when you give directly to a university. But now that the university has a mechanism by which individuals can give to talent acquisition and talent retention, over and above giving to scholarships or trying to provide facility or other kind of improvements within a program, all that's on the table for us. So we are rich with opportunity. It's just a question of matching that donor intent with those programs that we have developed.
And when you look at the programs, you've got NIL and you've got scholarships. two completely different things, because when you give to the university, when you give to scholarships, when you give to through the university directly, that's a tax deduction. When you give to NIL, that's an expense. It's not deductible on your taxes. So from a company standpoint, this is a way to advertise, take advantage of the name, image, and likeness of a particular player, use them in your marketing.
Right.
It's a business decision. So businesses should really be looking at potentially picking up athletes and using them for their benefit.
Absolutely. And we've created a corporate sponsorship program that allows that as well. So you can basically get the best of both worlds, Kevin, from what you're suggesting is one of these blended corporate sponsorship where you get the assets from the university. So university advertising, university sponsorship, being able to use the marks and logos and those kind of things as an official sponsor, but also carve out an ability to provide some resources to institutional revenue share or institutional NIL. And that would allow for then the student athletes to take part on a more individual level.
That's excellent. Now, does that also blend over into those not so revenue producing sports? I mean, you talked about, or I brought up water polo, and you talked about the water polo team and crew teams and things like that aren't going to be Saturday big draws, bowl game type of thing. So how's that helping those students as well?
Well, actually, one of our highest NIL earners was in the sport of women's swimming last year, and not connected with what we would traditionally think is one of the revenue share sports that I identified earlier. And that's because they've developed their own brand and their own platform, and they can therefore benefit on that in the current structure of the NCAA. They market themselves, and they get NIL. And so that is still open. And we have at San José State, much like every other Division I institution, we have systems that allows for what we call traditional NIL, which is as Kevin suggested, a company or companies coming to a particular student and saying, wanting to create a contractual relationship for their name, image, and likeness in exchange or consideration for services rendered.
You've been doing a great job at San Jose State the last few years and pulling together athletics and building pride on the campus. When I was talking with my son a number of years back, he was looking at colleges, and he said having a good football team is something he wanted, which is he didn't play football. He never watched football. He wasn't interested in sports. And I asked him why. He said because he wanted to go to a school that he was proud of. And that when you have a good football team, you have a proud student body. And I thought that was very insightful. When we have alumni who haven't been on campus for 10 years that are hearing about this good program, they're hearing about some of the amazing things happening on campus. Maybe they hear in the news that we're the number 5 public college in the nation, but they want to get involved. How would you recommend they do that?
Well, I mean, we have 300,000 alumni at San Jose State, so we are a real powerful economic engine. I think our provost at one point said we were 40,000 strong, taking the students, faculty, and staff into account, that we're almost like a little village. But now that we have 40,000 students in and of itself, I think we have to amend it that we are now a village of like 45 or 46,000. But if you just think about that impact on a college community, or in a particular region like San Jose. And I tell you, our president, Dr. Cynthia Teniente Matson,
she's doing an amazing job.
She is on point in terms of these town and gown relationships, and with San Jose 2026 coming and all these high profile sports related activities coming to this region, these powerful economic engines when you're talking about Super Bowl, World Cup, when you're talking about the Women's Professional Soccer League All-Star Game, when you're talking about the NCAA regionals on the men's side in next spring, all of these in the area, and San Jose State's involved in that and plugging in and trying to be a support to the region. It's a great time to be an alumni of San Jose State. That's what I would say to them, Kevin. It's like we are really being super intentional in terms of creating these wonderful relationships, town and gown. We're in steering committees. We're talking with a lot of community members. We have a lot of cross identified facility upgrade projects, like potentially bringing a track to Pal Stadium. All these things are going on, and I say for San Jose State folks to that have an interest in giving back to their university, if they have an interest in giving back to the athletic program, if they're inspired by some of the things that we talked about today, then to pick up the phone and give us a call, and we will match the intent or program with what they would like to give back to. And if you just want to come out and check us out and come to a homecoming game, see what we're about. And, what I think I'm most proud of, and what I heard at last week at our game, is that the game day and the energy and the pomp and circumstance and traditions around our game is at a level that it hasn't been before.
And at least in a very long time.
That warms my heart. It really does, because if individuals are feeling prideful walking out of that environment, and we had just a little part to do with how they're feeling, that's an awesome responsibility, and something that we don't shirk at that responsibility. We take that very, very seriously, and it takes a lot of collaboration with the broader university, with the president's office, with our alumni network, with our advancement team, in order to provide all these opportunities. And we sometimes, I'm just amazed that we can even have the same uniform colors on at a stadium at San José State, because we are Spartan in name and Spartan in terms of our workforce, and a lot of this falls on a very few individuals at San José State. And I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge my staff, just the great work that they do, their temperament. I think they believe in the right things, and they want to provide this to the community and the student athletes they're performing for this incredible university.
I have one question to add in real quick, interject. I'm going to fight one in here, but it's rare to get to talk to somebody in your position. You're the first athletic director I've had the pleasure of catching up with, and you sit in such a
Kevin, you said pleasure. We're recording. Pleasure.
But you have such a unique perspective. If you can give only one key piece of advice to a student athlete and their family of what to focus on getting ready to go into college in the next year to 3 years, what's that key piece of advice that you want to give them to take away and think about?
Again, this may be because of my legal training or the fact that I, am inquisitive or more of a black hat thinker, or I don't know what it is, but don't believe everything you hear. And make sure that everything that they're telling you is eventually showing up in a written instrument. And whether that's, coaches or agents or scouting services or family members or high school coaches or club coaches, whoever that source is that may or may not have vested interest, be careful. And I think those would be because it's getting more tricky. There were a lot more rules in place that protected the student athletes early on, and say like 20, 30, 40 years ago, through the process. And there was a lot more personal information through the recruiting process. You took unofficial visits, you took official visits. It was a 2 or 3 year process. There was regulations on when you could send mail and email and text messages, and this has evolved over time. The point being, it was a multi-year vetting process.
Yeah.
The coaches and all these kinds of things. And now, as I suggested, it's super transactional. And basically you're getting a call saying, he'll come if you meet this compensation point. And they've never met the coaching staff. They've never been to your campus. They don't know the academics. They don't know if they're a culture fit. They may or may not have even been into your environment. And now they're making one of the most important decisions. And I would say, don't do that. If I have one piece of advice, it'd be super intentional in this process. Treat it with the importance that you would want, and not make snap decisions and put research and make those relationships matter.
I think one of the most important questions you can answer for us today, Jeff, is what's your favorite music group?
My favorite music group is actually the Stone Roses, which is a band from Manchester, England, back when I was in college. That's normally my default, but most people don't know who the Stone Roses are. So I'll go with a different English band and maybe say Oasis.
I'm laughing because I've had the opportunity to interview some of the coaches with Jeff, and right in the middle of his interview at halftime, he throws in that question. So I just wanted to see if you could pivot as well as your coaching interviews did.
Yeah,
and,
what do you think? What do you think?
I think you did okay.
All right.
Who's your favorite band?
Fool's Gold by the Stone Roses. You guys can download
It's a great tune.
Chicago.
Oh, there you go. Excellent. Always ended up on last question. Best piece of financial advice you've ever received?
The best financial piece of advice I ever received. Oh man. And it's something I don't do very well is the emergency fund, right? I basically don't have an emergency fund, but I was listening again.
You got a couple of advisors here that might be able to help you with that. So let's have a conversation after we're done.
I had
rolling.
an emergency fund, but then I bought some eggs and some gas, and I don't have any more emergency fund.
Sorry we made you come into the office today.
No, but I think that's important. I think that was part of that talk I was referencing earlier when we had the workshop for the revenue share student athletes, and they kind of did discuss, what's the savings plan, and you have to be real intentional with what you're putting and allocating into these different buckets. But that emergency fund, I think, is the one that I personally struggle with. I'd rather put that in other buckets, if you will, but
like CVS or some of the other companies out there.
Yeah. Well, Energy Transfer is my latest. But yeah, no, that would be probably the biggest advice. And then, to be consistent and be consistent in terms of how you're applying those different buckets. And, you start saving as early as you possibly can. And can you go without that widget, right? And put that into a CVS or whoever else you want to invest in.
I think that pretty much wraps it up.
Oh, I appreciate it. Again, thanks for having me on here. And hopefully, the listeners got something out of this from my rambling.
Well, if nothing else, they got entertainment watching your microphone constantly shifting.
I know. What's the deal here?
It's the Stone Roses. They're on their way. But thank you, everybody, for joining us today. The power of wealthness. It's about more than just money. It's about turning hard work into opportunities. It's about improving the lives of those that we care most about. And it's about having a greater impact on where we actually live life. Remember, the power of wealthness is to be prepared, be proactive, and look out for each other. Remember, also, like and subscribe so you don't miss another episode. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Wealthness podcast. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at potentiawealth.com or give us a call at 408-288-7886. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Potentia Wealth or Potentia RIA. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Investment advice offered through Potentia RIA LLC, a registered investment advisor.